Not only did it revamp and refine a lot of what made previous Persona games so good, but Persona 5 also introduced another gimmick with Shadow Monikers. Abstract descriptions that could offer a potential glimpse into the mythology of the new enemy while still hiding its true nature until the protagonist could equip it, thus revealing the true name and origin. It's honestly a nice little touch that I hope to see return in P6. As such, these are 6 potential monikers for 6 potential shadows to appear in Persona 6. The only thing that can and will make a potential candidate disqualified from this list is for them to have had a shadow moniker in P5 already, since it's very much possible that they could end up returning with that moniker. And besides, I'd like to see these demons appear in that game anyway. A demon long overdue for an appearance proper in Persona, the Hair of Inaba is a demon that ironically needs no introduction for why this should be the case from the name alone. The major setting of Persona 4 and the name of a major character in Persona 1, Inaba is a name that is synonymous with Persona, and so the likely namesake deserves not only acknowledgement but representation in Persona. Recently, we saw the 3D debut of the Hair of Inaba as Saizo's default demon, acting like a persona in Soul Hackers 2. And while I personally may not like Soul Hackers 2 that much, the touch of giving the hair to a man with shark teeth and a shark keychain was a nice touch, all things considered. Furthermore, the Hair of Inaba also appeared very frequently in 2D games, making it a staple of the 3DS era. My favorite appearance during this time was as the white rabbit that Alice was hunting in Strange Journey, which relates nicely back to the mythology given that the hare is actually a white rabbit in some versions or translations of its legend. All this together sets up a very good precedent for the hare to make a reappearance sooner rather than later, and I hope that P6 is that sooner. If so, I'd imagine the Hair of Inaba as being a fairly early shadow faced very early on, possibly as a replacement for Pixie as the starting persona to introduce the main character's wildcard power via negotiations. Imagine the Hare asking for help in the same way as the legend, and if given the correct advice, it will automatically become your persona, much like Pixie did in P5. It'd be a very good way to introduce the wildcard feature to a new generation of Persona fans while calling back to the mythology. This brings us at last to the Shadow moniker, and an appropriate moniker would ideally be something that references both the mythology and my aforementioned recommended story significance. And the moniker that I thought of to accomplish this is the Shark Tooth Scarred Hare. Persona 6 could very well introduce a lot more people into mainline just like Persona 5 did for me and many others before it. And so it only seems right to give one of the demons of the Ars Goetia a place of prominence as one of the most easily recognizable sources of demonology and demon names in Japanese media. Shax is probably one of the best suited despite his few appearances in the series, as he has appeared in fan-favorite entries in Devil Summoner Soul Hackers, SMT4, and Persona 2. Speaking of which, P2 is where he had the biggest role in the series to date, as he was a reverse persona for one of the antagonists, opening up an organic connection to that game should it ever get the reload treatment. To quickly give context to this demon, Shax is a Marquis of Hell whose power is to take away the sight, hearing, and understanding of anyone at the command of the summoner. An aspect that could relate back to affecting cognition in terms of story. However, Shax is also well known to be deceitful in nature and will try to deceive his summoner unless forced into a triangle, as well as an opportunistic thief who tries to steal the world's treasures. As such, I'd like to recommend the Shadow moniker being either Deceitful Demonic Robber or Sense-Pilfering Bandit, as these tie back into its nature as a demon marquis and indiscriminate thief. Zutun Sha is one of my favorite cute demons, and one that I've long wanted to see be included more often. Much like the Hair of Inaba, Zutun Sha made a recent appearance in Soul Hackers 2, and while he may not have had any major story roles, He was one of Arrow's demons who Jack Frost literally rides into battle in one of the most adorable moments in the trailer. Boa-bellied boar has a nice ring to it, immediately rolling off the tongue with the 3 Bs, but also immediately communicates what this demon is with only a cursory knowledge to its mythology. A reptile-esque boar or a pot-bellied snake as wide as one, because it has the appetite of a boa, who are infamously voracious eaters when compared to a lot of other snakes. I've made no secret my love for the new redesign for Artemis, a much needed and much improved redesign over one of Kaneko-sensei's worst ever in my opinion, and one that I praised and felt strong enough to make the thumbnail in a previous list of 6 here. To quickly recap, Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, the moon, femininity, and youth in Greek mythology, and is well captured by a demon heavily influenced by magical girls and given various Greco-Roman touches in her Maho Shoujo attire and animations. As a shadow, I predict a lot of the same in terms of tone, which can really help with a series like Persona that revels in the anime of its setting and the expectations of its audience. Perhaps the best epithet that could capture all of this would be Maho Tsukai Shoujo, Japanese for magical moon girl if they really want to lean into the Japanese magical girl aspects of this design, as well as her association with the moon without spoiling her identity. Next up on our list is a demon that, much like the hair of Inaba, feels paradoxically like it should need no introduction, and yet just might for those who have only played Persona. Tsuchigumo has been iconic within the franchise for years, and yet has only ever appeared in 2 Persona games, Q1 and Q2 as the Strength and Star Arcana respectively. It's never appeared in any other Persona titles outside of these gimmicky chibi crossovers, which is somewhat odd because Tsuchigumo is arguably one of the franchise's most iconic demons, and yet remains absent from mainline Persona. It's one of Raido's demon summoning attacks in SMT3 Nocturne, is summoned to battle the Red Cape in the Raido 1 opening cinematic, is the first boss after the tutorial, and is also one of that game's biggest obstacles even as a common enemy, especially on hard mode. An experience that makes me want to give this demon the shadow moniker of Spider-Legged Tank because of how often I died to that demon on hard mode specifically. More recently, Tsuchigumo has appeared in both SMT5 and Soul Hackers 2, so the Spider-Legged Tank making a near appearance in Persona 6 is fairly reasonable. The previous 5 shadows on this list, you may have noticed, were all absentees from Persona 5 proper. But for the final slot, I'd like to showcase a shadow that did appear, but never received a shadow moniker. And there are quite a few to choose from the 4 benevolent animals to the ultimate personas of each arcana, but if I had to pick just one, then I'm going to go with Daisaujo. Ever since my first playthrough of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, where Daisaujo served as a great source of support and buffs for a decently long period of time after a brutal boss battle, especially with the power to drain enemy MP, Daisaujo has been one of my favorite demons to have occupying that role. In fact, Daisaujo is actually my favorite of the fiends because of this. So it should come as no surprise that I'd really like to see Daisaujo return in future games without being locked behind a paywall. As for the shadow moniker, I'd like to recommend it being Enlightened Corpse, since this design is based upon the actual Buddhist practice of monks starving and burying themselves alive so that their bodies can be preserved and worshipped as gods in death. And that's the video. A bit of a shorter one this month, but I really needed to get one out before October ended after some unexpected delays caused me to, well, postpone the other 2 that I had been working on. With any luck, they should be out in November. In the meantime, if you liked this video, then why don't you check out some of the other lists of 6? Particularly the 6 demon designs from previous SMT games to return in Persona. I have one for each of the mainline numbered installments, in fact, so go check them out if you are interested. I have a whole playlist, the link to which is on screen right now, along with one of the lists of 6 that I personally recommend. I'm Bilal Kun, and until next time, I hope everybody has a happy Halloween.